Welcome to Roots and Branches of Lehi, the podcast where we get to know the faces, stories, and lives that make up our community. I'm Ryan Harding, and I started this podcast as a way for us all to connect with the people we live alongside. Growing up in a small town, I learned that connections go beyond blood. They're built through shared experiences, friendships, and the moments we celebrate together. Each week, we'll sit down with someone new from Lehi to share their unique story, their passions, and what they love most about living here. So whether you've been here for years or just arrived, join us as we deepen our roots and reach out to our branches one story at a time. Welcome, Tim Brantley, to Roots and Branches of Lehi, the podcast where we get to know the people of Lehi. And you're one of the main people of Lehi here, right? So you were the principal of Lehi High School, right?
Yeah, I was the principal at Lehi High School the last 2 years. But even before that, I was the principal at the junior high.
Okay.
Back in '99.
Okay.
And so I was the principal at Lehi Junior High when it was the furthest west.
Okay.
Junior high,
Yeah.
and then here at Lehi High School for the last 2 years.
Okay. And then even before that, I think you were telling me you were in administration. Then I guess right before this, then, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Before I was the principal here, I was the supervisor of principals in the district office.
Okay.
And I had done that, and I just missed being around the students.
Sure. Sure.
So I thought it'd be fun to end a career back with students where
Yeah.
all the fun and exciting things happen.
Which is why you probably got into, teaching in the first place, I guess. It's the people, right? You want to be like, you're back in the trenches. You get to be with the students and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and I sure enjoyed that. And you know what? The jobs at the district office are important, and,
Of course.
and the work needs done. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to do that as well. But
Sure.
Just had to get back to the kids.
I gotcha. Well, let's back up a little bit then, I guess, as far as, kind of get to know you for a minute here. Tell me, so did you grow up in Lehi? Where are you from originally? Tell me the early days, I guess, here.
Ah, great. Yeah, I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And in fact, I was kind of in a rough area where I grew up. Mile High Stadium was right in my school attendance office and that. But grew up there in Denver and ended up coming to school out at Brigham Young University.
Okay.
And that was a long time ago in the 80s.
Sure.
Graduated from there and got hired by Alpine School District in '93.
Okay.
And then I taught and coached football at Orem High.
Okay.
And then following Orem High, I had the chance to be the principal at the junior high here.
Yeah.
And then I was the principal at the alternative high school for Alpine School District. Then the principal at Pleasant Grove High School.
Yeah.
Then in the district office, and then here at Lehi High.
Okay. And did you always want to go into education? When did that bug hit you? Tell me about that, I guess.
Yeah, my plan was to actually become a judge is what I wanted to eventually do. And I had gotten a degree at Brigham Young, and then I took the LSAT and applied and had a chance to go to different law schools, but it just didn't feel right.
Sure.
And my wife and I are like, we just felt I should go into education. So I did another year and got my license to be a teacher and started teaching and we knew that we had a good opportunity to get a master's degree because my wife was the head resident at one of the Brigham Young University's dormitories.
Okay.
So we finished and got a master's degree as well in administration.
Okay.
And then when I was at Orem High, the principals there said, you know what, you'd be a good administrator. And so hired me the next year after.
Oh, that's awesome.
And since then I've been in administration.
So the plan wasn't, to go into that, I mean, that's not,
Yeah, that wasn't the plan, but I can say with confidence, by switching and becoming an educator, it was the right thing for me and my family, and hopefully for the schools and the places I was at.
I'm quite sure it has been. So, which is, I guess that's probably good advice to young people, I guess, sometimes is, everybody has a path, like, hey, nope, I'm going to do this. And not everybody, I guess, people try to figure out what to do and stuff. But I like that, again, yours didn't necessarily go the way you thought, but in fact, you would argue, hey, it went better, right? Yeah. I mean, it went a different path that was better for you and stuff. So
yeah, agreed. And that's the thing. There's just so many opportunities out there, and there could be multiple different paths that could be right.
Sure.
But boy, I sure felt like this was the right way to go.
Yeah. Good. So you've obviously been in education for a long time. What things have you seen change over those years? What so you started in the 80s, I mean, what like, that's a long time, right? I'm guessing a lot's changed and stuff like that, and we could probably hit on lots of different areas, but give me some of the things that you've seen change in education over those years.
Boy, great question. I think one of the things that really stood out to me is where I went to school. In ninth grade in Denver, there were about 1,000 of us in our graduating class. Yeah. But there were just around 350 of us that graduated.
Okay.
And so about a third of the kids
wow.
were graduates out of that school. And my group of friends, I played sports and had good friends, and we were the ones who stayed and
sure.
Did our homework and graduated, and I realized what a difference teachers made and what extracurricular and those kind of things could make in people's lives, because so many people I knew, just kind of drifted away, got jobs in construction. Or
sure.
And those are great jobs, or they, worked in the hospitality and different things like that. But I just wanted to make a difference, and not just for me, but for others involved, because I could see the advantage of graduating. My dad hadn't graduated from high school, and we were poor, and we had a lot of struggles.
Sure.
So I just learned the value of education that way. And then I noticed over the years that schools were being held more and more accountable for the success of students. And having come from a school where
it wasn't super successful, it
very little success. I realized, what, we can really do a lot of good if we really focus in on students.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would say is one of the best things that have happened in education over the years are, instead of just, this is the system, you fit the system, and if you don't fit the system, you're gone.
Sure. Sure.
It became more, what, schools are here to help individual students with their needs and with the challenges they face. And we have become very, very centered on individual students. And I know there's still tons of growth that can happen.
Sure.
But schools have really gotten better that way.
Yeah. So as far as graduating and getting more kids, is that nationally something that's taken place, I guess? Is that as a whole, public schools are graduating more students than they used to? Do you know?
They are. Okay. They are doing much better, but still those big cities, they're the ones that really have hard times.
Still struggling there. Okay.
Yeah. But I would say I was amazed at the quality of education kids received here when I first started, compared to where I came from. So, Alpine School District, and even when I first started, was just so far ahead of where Denver public schools were at that time.
Sure.
And I think it continues to improve, and it's just neat to see that focus on individual students.
Yeah. So talk to me about that for a minute, because, sometimes Utah schools, there's lots of different grading, right? And so one of them is, the amount of money that's spent per student, right? And I think Utah's a little bit lower because obviously there's a lot of kids here and stuff like that. But, it seems like as far as students go, we do a really good job with students and stuff like that. So I guess tell me, talk to me about how Utah overcomes what, some would say, hey, you got to spend more money on these students, which obviously I'm not saying more money wouldn't help, but how do you think we're solving some of those problems, I guess, with that?
Yeah, I do think there's been a concerted effort to increase the funding for schools over the especially last 5 or 6 years.
Sure.
And I would say that Utah is very good at providing what students need at a very reasonable rate and cost, but a lot of it has to do with the families in Utah.
Sure.
The families value education. They value the extracurricular opportunities. They can, as families, they can see how that benefits their children. So they're supportive of it and encouraging. But other places, I think, struggle with that compared to Utah. So we're able to do more with less because of the good family support.
Gotcha. So more parents volunteering, kind of helping, trying to make it going. Obviously, they're not getting paid for that, kind of thing, right? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Is just more, community or family involvement, I guess, in some of those things?
Absolutely. The families are so good that way and do so much, to support the schools. You see parents at the school activities and bringing meals to the kids and bringing things and supporting the kids. And at home, they expect the kids to be on top of their studies. And they're checking their grades and they're checking their work and providing meaningful support in both those ways. Sure.
Now, you mentioned also, how the schools are really focused on students and stuff like that. One thing I've noticed is that it seems like, when I was in school, as far as getting college credit and stuff like that, it was like, hey, you take an AP class, if you pass some tests, then you get it. But now, I know a lot of kids, concurrent enrollment, different things like that. It seems like there's a lot more focus on and helping them, maybe college isn't the place. Maybe they're talking about, trade schools, different things like that. It seems like there is a lot more focus on really, helping them get ready for college if they're going to college and giving them a college credit, so that those last couple of years of high school aren't wasted, kind of thing. I don't know. Talk to me about some of the things that's happening there, I guess, as far as actually helping students eventually get a job or, figuring out what path they should go. So.
Yeah, that's great, Ryan. Yeah, we do focus on what we call college or career ready.
Yeah.
So for students who want to, go and pursue university or college level learning, we want them ready to go and prepared to do that. But we also recognize that some kids want to jump into a career right away.
Sure.
And there's great opportunities there through the career technical education. And, we partner with Mountain Lands Technology Center. And so kids have the opportunity to get some great training and some skills right in high school and are prepared to work. I had 2 of my own children. One became a pharmaceutical tech, and so he worked and got through college that way. And then another daughter who was she became a medical assistant, and now she's a registered nurse down at Utah Valley Regional Medical Center. And both of them just did so well from that, and it just prepared them to go right into the workforce, but also created the opportunity for them to work if they wanted to pursue the university pathways as well. And then you mentioned as well concurrent enrollment, and boy, there's some kids who graduate with their associate's degree.
I've heard of that,
while they're in high school, and what a great thing that is for those students. It's more challenging for them. It gets them working harder and learning deeper things, and it's just an amazing chance to think, okay, I've just gotten through 2 years of college without paying tuition.
Yeah.
That is an amazing opportunity.
Oh, it totally is. Well, all the money they're saving, plus as far as just advancing quicker, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it engages them, like you talked about. Seniors sometimes at the end are kind of just barely hanging on and taking classes that that aren't real meaningful to them. This solves that problem for a lot of those kids.
Which in hindsight, I mean, again, I wish I had that one, because that senior year of high school was kind of wasted. You know what I mean? I mean, for me, at least, personally, I mean, I didn't do a lot, and I would have loved to have done, college credit, because then I did go to BYU, and some people had more credit hours than I did. I was like, wait, what's going on?
How'd that happen?
And, how did that happen? Because then you're back into it, right? And so it's not. I don't know. I like that schools are doing that. It seems to be. It just I like it on so many levels, I guess. So and I like that, because education sometimes. I mean, you see people. Education's obviously good. It's good to be educated and stuff. But sometimes you see people that just education for education's sake, right? And I do like that. It seems like there's more of a focus on, well, okay, hey, let's educate you for a job. Let's educate you to, contribute to society in a meaningful way, right? As opposed to, again, just educating to learn, which, not that, I don't mean to, obviously education's good, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta
pay your bills.
You gotta pay your bills,
eat and
right?
live. And
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I like that. It seems like schools are doing more, for that, and obviously that's college and technical, but I like that high school seems to be integrating that into what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
So many more options compared to what there used to be.
Yeah.
And I think it'll continue to expand that way. The world is changing at such fast rates anymore. It's almost even hard to know how to structure yourself as an educational system, because things are changing so quick.
Sure.
Yeah.
In fact, speak to that. I mean, because you've both been administrative, and now obviously as the principal, can you speak to anything specific, as far as that's changed? Like, okay, hey, we were doing it this way, now we've switched this, or, I don't know, anything come to your mind?
Yeah. One of the things that quickly comes to mind is schools went through a time where there were high stakes tests.
Okay.
Where the students have to pass these not remote, but just memorized learning, facts, knowledge, and just regurgitate information. But that's really not the roles schools will be taking. I think they'll take that role less and less, because they can pull the facts and the information off the internet anytime.
Yeah.
But the problems that they'll face are no one wants a good source.
Yeah.
And recognizing that doesn't seem quite right. I need to dig into that deeper. And so I think schools will need to do a better job helping kids learn how to learn.
Love that.
And identify good sources of information versus bad information. And then think in deeper levels. Instead of memorizing, they need to communicate more. They need to write. They need to be able to be creative in their thought processes. They need to collaborate well.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to work with others. And I think schools are getting better at recognizing, and our political policymakers are understanding more and more that it's not about memorized facts.
Yeah.
It's about doing those deeper skills that will help them succeed in life.
Well, actually, that makes a lot of sense. I love that, because, the internet, AI now, I mean, you can get facts, but that's what makes it uniquely human, is the collaboration, the thinking, the creativity part, right? I mean, those are, and learning to learn, because, frankly, I bet you and I both couldn't say all the things we learned in high school ourselves, right? All those so all that memorization we did, it's, a lot of it gets forgotten, but I did learn how to learn, and I still love to learn. I still love to read, listen, different things like that. That's not something that's gone away. And so I continue to do that in life, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, okay, one and done, now I'm done. Now I know everything, right? And in this fast-paced world, I don't think you can ever say that, right?
And teachers can't.
Yes.
Teachers can't really be just the source of information anymore, because there's such an explosion of information out there. They can't.
Yeah, no, you can't. No, it's not possible. Mm-hmm. It's not possible. And so, well, again, so I love that somebody that's at the head of an organization feels that way, because I think that's a great thing for, if that's what's going on with students, I think that's way better than, than just memorization for
Yeah.
memorization's sake.
And there's probably still a few that hold to the old school of,
Sure.
yeah, here's the facts, and
Sure.
I'm going to ask for those facts on the test. But
Yeah.
and there's a place for some of that, but it's less and less all the time.
So speak to me for a second. Like I noticed, so I have two girls that, both took the ACTs, but when they applied for college, they didn't actually have to share their scores, which I was told it was more part of COVID and stuff like that, from that time. But I'm curious if you think that'll become, or is that part of a more national trend that's kind of changing, or is this maybe it is just COVID and it's just temporary?
Yeah.
Because you're talking about tests and stuff like that. I'm
Yeah.
asking you to speak off the cuff here on that, but tell me your thoughts.
That's no problem. I do see less emphasis on those type of tests because those tests, they've proven, through very good research that like the ACT is a great test to tell what socioeconomic background you come from.
Oh, okay.
But not really
If you're learning.
a predictor of how you'll do
Okay.
at the college level. And I think the universities recognize that, and they understand that they want to predict who's going to be successful.
Sure.
And that's really not the best way to do it anymore.
Okay.
And so I would see that continue not to be the standard anymore of getting into a school, because the universities, they want to find kids who will be successful.
Sure.
And the ACT really tells them, okay, they've come from a good family and a good background.
Sure. That had
Which helps.
Sure, of course. But yeah, just okay, that makes sense. So, have they figured out what does make a student successful in
Kind of
college?
like we talked about,
Okay.
Ryan, are they good collaborators?
Yeah,
Are they
okay.
good communicators? Are they critical thinkers and
Okay.
creative thinkers? Those are the ones who will be successful. But it's hard to do that on a bubble test,
Sure.
multiple choice
Sure.
test.
Of course, yes.
So it's really, like we talked about, it's really trying to see each student individually and what they have done and what they want to do. And,
Yeah.
And those kind of things.
Which is harder to measure, and I know we live in a world that wants to measure. Hey, if I'm giving you $10, I want to make sure I'm getting X amount of dollars back in return, right? For that, and so so some of these things are harder to measure. But I like that. I think we're recognizing, hey, some things are just going to be hard to measure.
They are, and I'm sure you recognize that so much in your business. The kind of people you're looking for really aren't the kids who knew when World War II dates were.
Yeah,
That's not going to help you.
No, not
but
at all.
boy, you want a person who understands how to resolve conflicts.
Yes.
And work through challenges as negotiations are going on and those kind of things.
Yeah, and have those emotional intelligence, I guess, right? Having that knowledge of kind of how to do things. Yeah, no, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so let's focus a little more on Lehi High School. I know, and you're leaving there and stuff like that. But tell me, what makes Lehi High School unique among other high schools here in Utah? Or is it, or tell me what makes it unique, I guess,
I was so excited as I was getting ready to come back out to school to be able to come to Lehi as I visited with the superintendent. We backpack a lot together, and we were talking about possibilities, and Lehi is truly one of those community schools.
Yeah.
It's been here since the early 1900s and has so much tradition and history and culture. And I don't know, that's just a joy to get to be part of those kind of things.
Sure.
And not to say that brand new schools aren't awesome, because they have their own cultures and great things.
For sure.
But for me, I love that history.
Yeah.
And so I've just enjoyed getting to be part of an established community and culture with a school that's really still part of a lot of Lehi City's culture. When we have sporting events at state or whatever, it's amazing the crowd Lehi brings compared to most schools.
Wow.
I would say every time we have more not students necessarily, but
Just-
community members
Yeah.
in the stands,
Wow.
cheering for their kids
Sure.
and supporting their kids.
Yeah.
And I think the drama department at Lehi High just tremendous. I don't know if you've been to any of the plays
I have.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
Oh, they just do such great work, and
Yeah.
and the kids just excel at that, and I love that we've really added to the concurrent enrollment classes.
Yeah.
In the last few years, we got recognized by Utah Valley University as the school last year who increased the most concurrent enrollment classes for
good.
kids. So
Okay.
there's that great tie-in to the past and
Yep.
the support, but also looking towards the future through
Yeah.
concurrent enrollment and those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Love that. Love that. Being a principal, I'm guessing, isn't always easy. Tell me some of the challenges that come with that role. As far as maybe speak to from a administrative faculty point of view, but then also over students and stuff like that. Tell me, like you could hit both of those, I guess. But
Yeah, I think I've learned from I've been a principal for 19 years, and in those 19 years, it really is about learning how to solve problems and help people solve problems.
yeah,
And often, the things that make their way into the administrative office, they're very high emotion, and people are going off of feelings, and those are legitimate things, and the emotions are legitimate feelings. But often the challenge is helping the conversation turn from emotional reactions to rational compromises and rational ways to solve the problem. And so it's really moving people from just a state of emotion to rational conflict resolution. Seems to be what I
Yep.
do the most of as a principal.
that makes sense. That makes sense. And you obviously have a lot of faculty there and stuff like that. Does everybody get on board with different things? Is that hard to kind of, you mentioned like trying to make sure we're teaching, hey, it's not just the facts, it's doing this. I mean, how do you handle so many different personalities, I guess, like that?
Yeah, one of the things that we do, we have what is called the Vision of Learning, and it's part of Alpine School District, and we talk about the 5 C's. We talk about communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. Did I say
Communication, collaboration,
critical thinking, creative, and character.
Character, okay.
Is the last one. Sorry about that.
Good.
Got to whip those off. But we call them the 5 C's, and what we want teachers to do is to implement those type of things within their class.
Okay.
And it can be a little different for every teacher how they do that.
Sure.
And some classes really will do well with creative thinking
Sure.
or critical thinking. And some classes, wow, this is a great opportunity to collaborate. So you hope that as a student has these 7 or 8 teachers, they're getting those 5 different things in different ways
Sure.
to help them. And often we also talk about the essential knowledge
Yeah.
that kids need, and we like to use knowledge as kind of a vehicle to really get after those 5 C's. So,
Sure.
so we might be talking historical data, and we might talk about, voting rights or those kind of things. But what we're doing is we're using that discussion to get them to critically think about things, to communicate better and those kind of things. So we use the knowledge and those kind of things to help with those critical 5 C's.
Love it. No, that's great. So, students obviously have changed a lot from the 80s to now, right?
Yeah.
Technology has changed. A lot of things have changed and stuff like that. How do you think, how do you help those students continue to learn and, without the distractions and different things like that? But talk to me how you've adapted to keep students engaged, I guess, over these years.
Yeah. Boy, that's the challenge right there.
Sure.
Because so many kids have so different things that are of interest to them.
Sure.
And they live in a social media world that is just constantly chipping at them, beeping, buzzing,
Yeah.
getting the information just constant. And it's hard for kids. Well, it's hard for adults. I mean,
I was going to say,
if I'm sitting here and my phone starts going off,
Totally.
I'm like,
Yeah, what's going
losing
on?
my train of thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Like, I wonder what my
I
phone's
know.
saying.
Yeah. What's going on? What emergency is happening? What fire do I have to put out? Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Our governor, has really championed, and the state legislature has put together that law where there'll be new policies in schools throughout Utah on phones, and the default is phones are not allowed during class time anymore.
Okay.
And I think that'll be a good thing. I think it'll be hard.
Sure.
And there'll be a change in what people are used to, but I think it's the right move. I think there's so much distraction and entertainment and wondering how my friends are doing that takes away from what the classroom is trying to get accomplished.
Sure. Because then you're not really there, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is,
so it'll be fun to see how that goes.
That will be interesting, because I'm one that I'm an early adopter a lot of time. I love technology. I think ultimately it's always for good. But having said that, it has to be controlled. It has to be handled correctly, right? I mean, and so I can see how, I'm thinking, hey, a phone's amazing. There's so many things you can learn. But yeah, if it's constantly, if I'm looking at this and not at you, the teacher, well, that's not going to be good, right? And then I'm not learning. I'm not actually present. Right, because I'm focusing on, especially, my friends are talking about a party this weekend, and I'm excited about that, and so my mind's elsewhere, right? So,
that's a great challenge. I think it's beyond just school. I think it's in families.
Sure.
I think it's a challenge in the workforce.
Sure.
I think it's a challenge everywhere. It's just that our minds are just constantly in that being trying to get our focus onto whatever's on the phone, whether they're trying to sell something to us or get us to believe a certain way or our friends want to connect with us. It's a challenge.
Yeah. No, I agree. You've had a long career. Tell me some of the things that you're most proud of as far as, hey, I really like that I did this. I really like that I did that. Tell me anything in particular as you look back on your career and what you accomplished and stuff.
There's probably three things that I've tried to focus on, and it's kind of evolved a little bit during my career. But in the beginning, I went through the Covey Leadership Principle Training, and in that we were all asked to make a mission statement, and I thought hard about that, and I always keep coming back to it is be an influence for good. And so that's what I've tried to do in every situation is try and be an influence for good. I'm not going to know all the answers, and I'm not always going to get it right.
Sure.
But I can always try and do the right things and do it the right way.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. And then as I went through my career, I got interested in what was called the Arbinger Institute, and it's a company that really deals in peacemaking and negotiations and things like that, and so I really started using the information through Arbinger, and that's where you're really trying to see people as people, and to just honor them as a person and not seeing them as an object.
Sure.
And so that's another thing I've really tried hard to do is, that's a person. It's not an object.
Yeah.
It is a person with needs, wants, desires, and hopes.
Sure.
And I need to value that. And so that was a big thing. And then the other thing I've tried to do is help the kids and even the adults recognize that we should help each other be our best selves. Be the kind of person who's helping each other be their best.
Yeah.
Too often we get in situations, at least I do, and I see it among the kids where, we try and talk each other into doing something that really isn't in our best interest.
Sure.
But hey, let's go do this, or let's go do this, and it's not the thing that's going to bring them joy and happiness and success in life. So those are the kind of three things I'd really try to focus on in my career.
I love that. I love that none of them are, major things, but they're very influential things, I guess, that would happen over a lifetime of service, right? I mean, which is, obviously what I think you've done is, hey, tried to do these things and over 40 years or so, like, hey, here's what I've accomplished, right? I've done a lot of good, by small and simple ways, I guess, right? You know what I mean? So good job. No, that's awesome. What advice would you give to the next principal that's coming in?
Yeah, the next principal coming in, Aaron Barth, he was an assistant principal there at Lehi High quite a while ago, and has been a principal at Willow Creek, and now at Viewpoint, and lives in the Lehi community.
Yep.
So
he was my neighbor at one point, actually.
Oh, well,
so
there you go.
I know him from 10 years ago, but yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You better go tell him, okay, here's what we need, Aaron.
I know, I need to. Yes, that's exactly it.
I would say that what you want as an educational leader is a person who will really reach out and inspire others to do their best.
Sure.
And I believe he's that kind of person.
Good.
I think Aaron will step in and recognize that everybody's unique and everybody has skills and talents, and then you try and use those abilities to do great things and to honor students and to help them be their best. So it's that focus on helping others learn and grow.
Well, and your focus is on that collaboration part, I guess, too, right? It's not that Aaron knows everything and he's gonna, it's okay. How do I empower other people? I think it's kind of pushing it away from yourself, and onto because we're much stronger together, right? As a community. I mean, that's what this is about, and I'm guessing at a school, if everybody's focused on the same goal of helping, then that's how you make people better, I guess.
Bring teams together and work. You'll get so much more done with a team of people versus one individual.
100%. Even if that person is super awesome, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's just the law of numbers. It's just there's good people, and anyhow. No, I love that. Mm-hmm. If you could go back and now give your younger self any advice, would you change anything? I guess, as far as going back to young Tim and saying, okay, hey, maybe you should have changed this earlier or something like that. Anything like that stands out to you?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things, because you look back and think, well, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. But I guess you can't know that until you experience it.
You can't.
And so I would say if I were to start over again, I would probably say find people who do certain things really well and learn from them more often.
Okay.
Because sometimes you get so busy that you're just focused in on the work rather than, and some people are much better at instead reaching out to people and say, hey, you do this really well.
Sure.
Come help me, come teach me.
Yeah.
That's what I wish I would have done a little better.
Okay. Love that. So what's next for you?
Yeah.
So you're retiring, but you're not dead. So tell me what's the future hold for Tim?
Well, we have 5 children and we're up to 8 grandchildren now. And my wife was from Arizona and I'm from Colorado, but we're here in Utah, and we're Utahns now, and our children married kids who are Utahns.
Okay, so they're all
So I think we're all going to stay around.
That's awesome. Awesome.
And so we're going to enjoy them. We're going to travel a little bit, my wife and I, for a few months. And then I think our plan is to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I think we plan on doing that and then come back and just keep making decisions from there.
Sure. Awesome. Okay. Well, hey, you've done very good. Thanks for all, I mean, we all have jobs and we all make money at our jobs and stuff like that. But I think the best is when you can have a job that really makes an impact on the world too. I mean, that's the goal. Sure, I have to provide for my family, but I also want to provide meaningful service to the world, right? Help people. And it sounds like you've you've done that in your career and stuff like that, really helping young minds and learning and growing and helping them, obviously achieve their potential, which is, I think, the goal, right?
Yeah, I think so. I do think, that when I was directed, and my wife and I and our thinking from moving away from nothing wrong with being a judge or being an attorney, but I think the right thing was to get into this profession where you do really spend all your time and energy trying to help others learn and grow.
Yeah, no, love it. Tim, anything we didn't cover that you wanted to cover? Any other?
Well, nothing really comes to mind. You had great questions, but I would just say there are some amazing kids coming up through the system, and it's just remarkable to see the increased skill, the increased knowledge, the increased abilities that kids have. It's amazing to see how accomplished kids are now compared to when I first started.
Sure.
It's just amazing how competent and skilled and smart kids are.
Love that.
So we're in good shape.
I like hearing that. That's a good one to end on, I guess, because I think sometimes the world, has a pessimistic view of the future, right? I mean, there's wars, there's all these different bad things happening, and so it's kind of a scary place. But I like that, well, if the future is children, it sounds like you have a bright view of the future, I guess.
Absolutely. There are remarkable kids coming up. Yeah. So thank goodness.
Good. Well, hey, that's what we want. We want good kids, helping us, and they'll be the ones taking care of us, I guess, as we get older here too. Right. So, but well, thanks, Tim. Appreciate you all. All you've done, and good luck in that next phase of life. So,
thank you so much. It's a pleasure to visit with you today, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Roots and Branches of Lehi. I hope today's story helped you feel a little more connected to the people who make up our community. Remember, every person here has a unique story, and together, we're what makes Lehi feel like home. If you know someone who would be a great fit for this podcast, please fill out the form in the show notes so we can reach out and schedule an interview. We'd love to hear from you. A big thank you to our sponsors, the Work Harding Home Mortgage Team and Play Harding Nightly Vacation Rentals, for supporting this show and helping us bring our community closer together. Until next time, keep growing those roots and reaching out to your branches. Take care.